Hello everyone. In this topic, we will discuss about the science, technology, and nation building. So, the objective of this lesson is to discuss the role of science and technology in the Philippine nation building and to evaluate government policies pertaining to science and technology in terms of their contribution to nation building and identify actual science and technology policies of the government and appraise their impact on the development of the Filipino nation. So, those are our three objectives of this lesson. So, this lesson, everyone listen. We will discuss the influence of science and technology in the development of the Philippine society. So it identifies such as government programs, projects, and policies that geared towards boosting the science and technological capacity of the country. In this lesson, we will also include the discussion on Philippine indigenous science and technology. So, brief historical background of science and technology in the Philippines. The history of science and technology in the Philippines started way back before the country gains its independence from the American colonizers. Okay? Before the coming of the Spanish colonizers, the early inhabitants of the archipelago had their own culture and traditions. It is very wrong to say that Filipinos are not yet civilized when the so-called Western colonizers arrived in our country. So that's a very, very wrong notion because there are so many archaeological evidences that we already have writing, we practice religion, and there is a complex hierarchy within the society. So that's a sign that our ancestors are already cultured. When we say cultured, they follow a certain strict rules and regulations. So they had their own belief system and indigenous knowledge system. So this indigenous knowledge system keeps them organized and sustain their lives and communities for many, many years. Science in pre-Spanish Philippines, when I say pre-Spanish Philippines, this is before the coming of the Spaniards. So our science is embodied in the way of life of the people. Scientific knowledge is observed in the way they plant their crops that provide them food. So basically, our ancestors focus on the very practical aspect of their life, and that is survival. So, scientific knowledge also is observed in taking care of animals to help them in their daily tasks for food production. And science is observed in the way they interpret the movements of heavenly bodies to predict seasons and climates, and even in organizing days into months and years. They use science in preparing the soil for agricultural purposes. And like any other ancient cultures, our ancestors discovered the medicinal uses of plants. Our ancestors are said to be a very good herbalist. We know the use of our endemic plants and even animal products. We can even convert it into medicine for a certain ailments. Now, technology is used by our ancestors in building houses, irrigations, in developing tools that they can use in everyday life. In Butuan, if you will be given a chance to visit, they or the archaeologists dug up a very, very old artifact, and that is called the Balangay. It dates back thousands of years from now. Okay, you try to Google the Balangay of Butuan. Butuan is found here in Mindanao. So that's a sign that our ancestors are already using technology. Okay? Our ancestors also developed uh, tools for war, especially in tribal conflicts, for transportation, both land and waterways, and they also developed technologies in creating musical instruments. The different archaeological artifacts discovered in different parts of the country, as what I've mentioned earlier, it also proved that Metal Age also had significant influence on the lives of early Filipinos. The sophisticated designs of gold and silver, it's used for jewelry, and even ceramics and metal tools, it proved that their technological ideas helped in the development of different tools. Also, trading with China, Japan, ano pa ba, Indonesia, and other nearby countries have influenced their lives by providing different opportunities for cultural and technological exchange. Alam nyo ba na yung pagbabalot or poultry, we've learned it from the Japanese. So, long time ago, we have already exchanged ideas and technology. So that's a sign that different groups of people are already here, okay, helping us to improve our lives. And tayo din mismo as well. Okay? All of these ancient practices in science and technology are considered now as indigenous science or also known as folk science. Now, when the Spaniards colonized the country, they brought with them their own culture and practices. They established schools for boys and girls and introduced the concept of subjects and disciplines. It was the beginning of formal science and technology in the country. Now, it is known as School of Science and Technology. Learning of science in school focuses on understanding different concepts related to the human body, plants, animals, and even heavenly bodies. Technology focuses on using and developing house tools is also used in everyday life. So, life during the Spanish era slowly became modernized. Okay? Even our clothing, how the way we dress, it was changed since we've embraced Christianity. Okay? Adapting some Western technology and their ways of life, the Filipino developed ways to replicate the technology brought by Spaniards using indigenous materials. Even long before when the Spaniards arrived, we have already a technology how to build cannons. Okay? Medicine, for example, and advanced science were introduced in formal colleges and universities established by the Catholic orders. The galleon trade, it has brought additional technology and development in the Philippines. Although it is only beneficial for the Spaniards. These trades allow other ideas, crafts, tools, and cultural practices, and even technology and Western practices reach the country. Some Filipino students who were able to study in Europe, they also contributed to the advancement of medicine, engineering, arts, music, and literature. They contributed so much in the country. Okay? In the Philippines became one of the centers of global trade in Southeast Asia during that time. And it was considered to be one of the most developed places in the region. Although the country is blessed with these developments, the superstitious beliefs of the people and the Catholic doctrines and practices during the Spanish era halted the growth of science in the country. The Americans, they have more influence in the developments of science and technology in the Philippines if you will compare it to the Spaniards. Because they established the public education system, di ba? Education now is free for all. And they improve the engineering works and the health education of the people. The Americans also established a modern research university, and that is the University of the Philippines. And they created more public hospitals than formal colonial masters. Because the goal of the Americans is to win the hearts and minds of the people, to stop the insurrection. Okay? That's their strategy. They will use parang development as a bargain for our support. So the mineral resources of the country were also explored and exploited suddenly, sad to say, during the American times. If you heard, nawawala na yan ngayon. And even kamagong. Because those trees were cut and they were exported to the United States. Because, for what? They came here for what? For propagating their goodwill. A colonizer does not behave that way. They have this interest. So, transportation during the American times and communication systems were improved, though not accessible throughout the country because we are an island nation. So they focus merely on the capital, especially huge cities such as Metro Manila or Manila. The Americans did everything to Americanize the Philippines. Even the mode of instructions in their way of teaching is Americanized. We are using English. So if you can still remember our discussion about the Thomasites, di ba? Those are American soldiers who were on board USS Thomas. Those are pure Americans. So they make use of their own language for us to really embrace American ideals. And the Americans also, they reorganize the learning of science and introduce public school and private school system. In basic education, on the other hand, science education focuses on nature studies and science. It also includes sanitation until it became a subject formally known as science. The teaching of science in higher education has also greatly improved and modernized. Researchers were done to control malaria, cholera, and tuberculosis and other tropical diseases. Because during the Spanish and American occupation, it's hundreds of thousands of Filipinos who died because of cholera and malaria. So, it is the goal of our local researchers to look for ways and means on how to stop such epidemic. And the desire of the Americans is to develop the human resources of the Philippines to serve their own interests, somehow beneficial in their country. This allowed American scholars to introduce their new knowledge and technology in our country. The Protestant church missions in different places in the country also brought hospitals and schools to far-flung areas. I'll give you an example. If you've heard about Silliman University, okay, in Dumaguete City, Dumaguete will not become a city most probably without Silliman because it is the icon of their island. Uh, However, okay, this is the hard time. During World War II, everything was destabilized. Okay, the development was destabilized in many many ways. Institutions and public facilities were turned into ashes. Houses were burned and many lives were destroyed. The country had a difficult time to rebuild itself from the ruins of the war. Don't you know, next to Warsaw, Poland in Europe, because that's the place where all the superpower clashes in Europe, in European theater, next to Warsaw, Poland is Manila. Have you heard about it? Next to be greatly devastated or destroyed. It's not Berlin, it's not Tokyo, it's not Rome, but it's Manila, next to Warsaw, Poland. Imagine that. During the retreat of the Japanese, since the American needs to flush out the stragglers, they have to pulverize all the buildings in Manila. So it was the Americans who destroyed all the buildings there. It's opposite to what we've heard from the media. Because it's a strategy to flush out the Japanese snipers and stragglers who are still occupying the building. So it's between life and death decision. Anyway, the country had a difficult time to rebuild itself from the ruins of the war. The human spirit to survive and to rebuild the country may be strong, but the capacity of the country to bring back what was destroyed was very limited because the American resources and in focus they gave it to the Japanese. After sending two nuclear bombs to Japanese cities, I think this is just my opinion. The Americans felt guilty of what they have done to those innocent civilians. So what they did is to help rebuild Japan in so many ways. So the Philippines, their true friend, was left behind during the rebuilding process. That's why Japan became the second biggest economy in the world during the 80s, 90s, and early 20s because they do not have to spend anymore for military materials. Most of their tax went to proper projects because the Americans promised to protect them. Unlike us, wala, wala. So, the reparation funds is payment of the Japanese to us. All of it focus on building some institution and public facilities like schools, hospitals, and transportation systems. The reparation money from Japan was also concentrated on building highways and providing technological training and human resource development in our country. Since the establishment of the new republic, the whole nation has been focusing on using limited resources in improving science and technology capacity in our islands. Anyway, it has explored the use of ODA, if you've heard ODA, that is Overseas Development Allocations. This came from different countries to help our country. In such a way to improve our scientific productivity and technological capability. Human resource development is at the heart of this effort, focusing on producing more engineers, scientists, technology experts, doctors, and other professionals in our country. So, the development of science and technology in the Philippines is based on its very brief history. Tandaan nyo, naging ganap na bansa lang tayo after World War II. Okay? Unlike United States, it's already there after the British gave them independence. So, like in the history of science compared to other countries, it is always shaped by human and social activities, both external and internal. So, science and technology may have different impacts on the lives of the people in the development of the Philippine society. However, improving the quality of science education still remains as a big challenge in the country. School science from basic education to graduate education is improving slowly. And there are only few students enrolling in science and technology courses. Bakit ko nasabi few lang who wants to enroll science courses? Because there is no guarantee if you will be hired in the related field. Most of them became teachers or professors in tertiary levels. And the best and brightest are being imported by other countries. That is why only few wants to enroll in science courses that was offered by our country. Even our country established a department of all subjects. Meron tayo. Filipino, Hekasi, or History, ano pa ba? TLE, name it. Of all subjects, it was only science and technology that was given a privilege to be, what is that, granted a department. When you say department, a buong focus ng gobyerno dyan ibinigay. But still, we are locked down in terms of science and technology because there's no guarantee, even if we give scholarships, but there's no guarantee for employment. Majority of them, from BS Physics, BS Chemistry, they end up as teachers. Ang iba nasa factory with bigger salary. So that's one of the challenges that our government must address. That's why government policies on science and technology is our next topic. So let's go now to government policies on science and technology. The Philippine government introduced and implemented several programs, projects, and policies to boost the area of science and technology. The goal is to prepare the whole country and its people to meet the demands of technologically driven world and capacitate the people to live in a world driven by science. According to Padilla, in his book, published year 2015, it is reported that in response to the ASEAN 2015 agenda, the government, particularly DOST, ano bang meaning yan? Department of Science and Technology, okay, has sought the expertise of National Research Council of the Philippines to consult various sectors in the society to study how the Philippines can prepare itself in meeting the ASEAN 2015 goals. So as a result of the consultation, the NCRP or National Research Council of the Philippines is expected to recommend policies and programs that will improve the competitiveness of the Philippines in ASEAN region. So the NCRP clustered these policies into four. Okay, listen. Number one, social sciences, humanities, education, international policies, and governance. So under this, This is to integrating ASEAN awareness in basic education without adding to the curriculum, emphasizing teaching in the mother tongue, developing school infrastructures and providing for ICT broadband. And the fourth is local food security. So that's it. Now, number two, physics, engineering, and industrial research, earth and space sciences, and mathematics. Now, what's the purpose of this? That is emphasizing degrees, licenses, and employment opportunities. Okay, at least ina-address na nila. Outright grants for peer monitoring and the review of Republic Act 9184. That is harnessing science and technology as independent mover of development. Number three, medical, chemical, and pharmaceutical sciences. Okay, the purpose is ensuring compliance of drug manufactured firms with ASEAN harmonized standards by full implementation of the Food and Drug Administration. Another is creating an educational council dedicated to standardization of pharmaceutical services and care. We have also empowering food and drug agencies to conduct evidence-based research as pool of information, allocating 2% of the GDP to research, and legislating a law supporting human genome projects. Wow. And number four, biological science, agriculture, and forestry. So that is to protect and conserve biodiversity by full implementation of existing laws. Use of biosafety and standard model by ASEAN countries. Promoting indigenous knowledge systems and indigenous peoples conservation. And formulation of common food and safety standards. Okay, there are other existing programs supported by Philippine government through the DOST. Some of these projects are the following: providing funds for basic research and patents related to science and technology. The government funds basic and applied research. Funding of these research and projects are also from the Overseas Development Aid, as what I mentioned, that's ODA, from different countries. Another one is providing scholarships for undergraduate and graduate students in the field of science and technology. According to Saloma, published in 2015, he pointed out that the country needs to produce more doctoral graduates in the field of science and technology and produce more research in this field, including na ang engineering. That is why us as faculty in tertiary level, we are given full scholarships and even allowance every semester just for us to make research and finish our degree. So, by 5 years from now to ngayon is 2021, just give mga 5 years lang. 50% of the faculty in tertiary level will become doctors. And our minimum requirements for hiring teachers, alam nyo ba yun? Just for instructor 1, ang minimum requirements is to have master's degree, license, and of course, a graduate of uh, undergraduate or graduate of any courses. So minimum requirements ha, master's degree. There will be a time, siguro 10 years to 15 years from now, minimum graduates a degree for tertiary teachers. Instructor 1 lang yan ha. Baka doctorate na ang kailangan. Mas mahirap, mas matindi. So another goal, I will add some of the goals of DOST. or some programs of the OST. Establishing more branches of the Philippine Science High School system for training young Filipinos in the field of science and technology. That's why you have DOST sections in huge public schools, especially during our time. They are called to be the elites in the school. I do not know what happened to them right now. You have also creating science and technology parks to encourage academe and industry partnerships. Balik Scientist Program to encourage Filipino scientists abroad to come home and work in the Philippines or conduct research and projects in collaboration with Philippine-based scientists. Developing science and technology parks in academic campuses to encourage and industry partnerships. The establishment of the National Science Complex and National Engineering Complex within the University of the Philippines campus in Diliman. This aim to develop more science and technology and engineering manpower resources needed by the country. They also aim to produce more researches in these fields. The American Academy of Science and Engineering, it's called PAASE. It identified several capacity building programs such as number one, establishment of natural centers of excellence and manpower and institutional development programs such as engineering and science education program SF, okay, to produce more PhD graduates in science and engineering. Establishment of regional centers to support specific industries that will lead the country in different research and development areas. Establishment of science and technology business centers to assist, advise, and incubate techno entrepreneurship ventures and strengthen science education at an early stage through Philippine Science High School System. So in the field of education, several science-related programs and projects were created to develop the literacy of the country. Special science class were organized and special science elementary schools were established in different regions. Aside from this, science and mathematics in basic education were continuously improved. The current K-12 education program included science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Tawag ninyo dyan STEM. Okay, sino sa inyo kumuha ng track na yon? This is one of the major track in senior high school program to encourage more students to enroll in science-related fields in college. I do not know if nasusunod because I've heard kahit UMS ka pa or gas, you can still enroll in science-related courses as long as you pass the entrance test. So, paper tiger lang siya. When I say paper tiger, nandun lang sa hanggang papel but in implementation, magulo. Now, lately, the Commission on Higher Education launched its Philippine California Advanced Research Institute. Narinig nyo na yung PICARE? Its project is to allow several higher education institutions in the country and some US-based laboratories, research institutes, and universities in the US to work on research and projects related to science, agriculture, engineering, health, and technology. This project hope the strengthening of STEM competitiveness in the country. There are many other areas in the field that the country is looking forward to embark various research and projects. The following are some of them. Number one, use of alternative and safe energy. Number two, harnessing mineral resources. Number three, finding cure for various diseases and illnesses. Number four, climate change and global warming. Number five, increasing food production. Six, preservation of natural resources. Seven, coping with natural disasters and calamities. And the last, eight, infrastructural development. The Philippine Congress has also created various laws related to science and technology. These laws serve as legal framework for science and technology in the country. These laws vary according to different themes such as conservation, health-related, technology building, and supporting basic research. Among others, some laws and policies are in line with international treaties such as United Nations, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO, and ASEAN, or Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and other international agencies. So, as shown in the figure, look at this one. In the diagram, the development of policies in science and technology is shaped or influenced by several variables. Policies need to be aligned to national goals. Consider international commitments based on legal frameworks and respond to various social needs, issues, and other problems. Science and technology policies ensures that the whole country and all people will experience the progress that science can bring. Policies are guides to direct all efforts to a goal of developing a scientifically advanced country.